welcome to Deal Nation. We're joined today by Callan Faulkner, the founder of REI Optimize, and an all-around marketing guru that I love to go to when I have questions about where the industry is headed and what we should be doing to interact with sellers. So, Callan, super happy to have you on the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I over the years, we've known each other for probably 5-6 years at this point.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've always been a go-to for me where I'm like, I wonder, I need a creative solution for how to work in AI, for instance. And I know you're always going to have an answer. So definitely excited to see where this conversation goes. But for those of you those listeners that don't know your name right off the top or don't know REI Optimize off the top, you've really been an innovator in the land space and a coach who's helped a lot of people get involved in the land space and make hundreds of thousands, if not millions, off of that industry. So, before you became kind of a guru within the space, you had to start somewhere, right? So what's Callan Faulkner's origin story?
I wasn't born this way, Michael. I did have to learn. I had to learn it. Yeah. So, first of all, great to be here. I know we go way back, and launch control was a huge part of my journey. So I'm excited to chat today. So my background, I grew up knowing that I was obsessed with efficiency, knowing that if there was a little bit of an easier way to do something, when my mom would say clean your room, I'm like, okay, how do I hack this? How do I make it so that we can, even the way my clothes were organized, like I want it to be as simple, as easy, as efficient as possible. And sure enough, that translated into my career. So I got into the technology automation space pretty much right after college. In 2013, I worked for a CRM implementation, Fortune 5000. So we did big Salesforce, big HubSpot, big Microsoft CRM implementation. So I learned the foundations of, take Excel spreadsheet, move it into workflow, automation 101. I was on the sales side. So I got that really nice mix of sales, understanding, consultation sales, and then kind of the mixture of, okay, this is actually how we automate a business. That turned into me listening to a podcast in late 2019 about land investing. A lot of my friends at the time were flipping houses. I am the least handy person to exist. I don't know how to hang a picture frame. So I was like, there's no chance I'm going to be demoing kitchens on the weekend. They are. So land felt like, I'm like, well, there's no demo, there's no remodeling. Like that feels good. I love the outdoors. I love being on land. It seems like a great fit. So I got into a land investing course in kind of summer of 2020, about 4 years ago. And then that turned into kind of full-blown land entitlement, land development. I'm now doing land coaching, and then that turned into me teaching land investors how to automate their business. So I kind of got into this real estate investing world and quickly was like, oh my gosh, people are sending mailers, like 60-cent mailers. What are we doing here, folks? Let's automate this. They're faxing contracts. I'm like, whoa, guys, there's a better way. Believe it or not. And then this has kind of morphed into me just becoming utterly obsessed with AI and bringing that into all my workflows.
Yeah. The land space is really interesting, and you could tell me if you think I'm way off base on this, but I feel like the investing in the land space is probably like 2 years behind investing in the wholesaling space.
100%.
And I feel like that's an amazing opportunity for land to kind of course correct where wholesaling probably still needs to, right? And so there's a lot of opportunities for better seller engagement, for just better reputation, for keeping it as a staying under the radar in a positive kind of way.
100%. Yeah, I don't know why. I got into it and immediately the software I was told to use didn't have a Zapier integration. I'm like, I'm out. I'm literally out. Like I can't do this. And they're like, a Zapier what? So yeah, I don't know. The land investing space is very mail heavy, very paper heavy, even acquisitions training. Like there wasn't any sales training on the acquisition side. I'm like, are you guys role playing these conversations? Like, do we have like objection handling? Are we following any sort of principles here? And no, there was not any of that when I first got in. Now, little bit of it, but that's really what REI Optimize was born out of is, oh boy, we need to modernize this space.
Yeah. And it's such a great opportunity. I mean, the wholesaling industry in many ways got launched by Robert Kiyosaki's Real Dad
Yeah.
or Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And so an entire industry sprung up around that book. And fortunately for you, Robert doesn't mention land in that book.
No, he does not.
Right? So there wasn't this, ooh, land is an opportunity pipeline or push. So it was really very, like you said, faxing contracts, right? Like really old school in land. So there was the ability to not only to construct like a coaching program, but really to build the infrastructure for communication infrastructure for an entire industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now that there's some younger people coming in, and most of the people I work with are kind of in their late 30s, early 40s. I'm seeing it get closer and closer. And then I do
Yeah.
have a couple house wholesaling, syndication guys, some multifamily guys in my community too. And what I'm finding now is what people are really looking for is, of course, let's automate as much as we possibly can. But a lot of the real estate investing space uses virtual assistants, which I'm sure you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I think activating them to their highest potential using technology has been a huge piece that I've been working on a lot, especially in launch control. You know, a lot of your front end is usually that person that has English as a second language. And
Mm-hmm.
so AI has been really exciting for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's great. Like we want to, it's a delicate balance, right? Like the goal at launch control, whether you're investing in land or you're investing in distressed properties, is to help you activate conversations as quickly as possible, right? Like we know that you're going to close a deal, whether it be land or home, you're going to close that by having a phone call. If you're in certain cases, less so in land than in wholesaling, but you might be having an on-site visit, you might have an actual interaction with the seller. We want to get you to that point where you're having the real estate conversations, the real real estate conversations as quickly as possible, right?
100%.
From a seller perspective, you have to have a certain level of humanity and respect and trust building from the first text you send or the first faux handwritten letter that you send, whatever your
Mhm.
course is. You can't, it can't be completely mechanized, right? There has to be a human element to it. So finding that balance is kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we talked about before, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but how do you use AI to actually bring in more human to each conversation? Land investors do this a lot because a lot of pieces of land don't have a mailing address. They only have the county as they don't have a city a lot of times on the record. So in their text message, it's like, "Hey, we were looking at your 12-acre property in Harrison County." I'm like, if someone
Right.
called me and said, "I'm looking at your house in Hennepin County," I'd be like, "What the fuck is?" Sorry, what the heck is
Yeah,
this? What the heck
right.
is this?
You
Hennepin
can
County,
cuss.
like
YouTube's fine
in
with that.
okay, cool. I shouldn't do that, but we're working on it. But truly, I'm like, this is obviously spam. So with
Yeah,
AI, we need to fill in the city name. What's the closest city? Like if you are a house wholesaler listening to this and you're saying, "Hey, I looked at blank address," like, no, we need to. What else about that area is making you feel like you want to invest there or helping them understand that you're someone
sure.
trustworthy? Let me give you an example. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have St. Paul's, the other big city. So people call us the Twin Cities. It's called the Twin Cities here. If you're not from here, you wouldn't know that. But if I got a text that said we've been investing in the Twin Cities for the last couple of years, right away I'm like, okay, like I wouldn't really think anything of it, but subconsciously I'm like, okay, this person clearly knows this area and what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the benefits of land is that land doesn't have windows. Right? If you
Right.
go by, if you say like, "Oh yeah, I love your house at 57 Green Street," the impression to the recipient is you were looking through my window and I don't like that, right? Whereas
Mhm.
land feels safer because it doesn't have windows. It doesn't
Very
feel
much.
invasive. And
Very
to
much.
your point, like instead of putting the focus on the house, if you said something in a text like, like whether it's land or a home, right?
Yeah.
This example might be better for a home, but if you said, I'm investing in the area, I'm particularly looking in, the Oak Ridge Estates area because it's close to the X school district, which is really great, right? And
Yes.
because it's close to the school district is your reasoning, not because of the house. Then they understand that you're interested in the area. They understand that you're interested in their
You've
house
done your
becomes second.
research. Yep.
You're not focused strictly on that.
Absolutely.
So
Can
I
you
want
still?
to backtrack. Yeah, I want to backtrack just a little bit because I really want to get into what you were saying of putting automation into the early stages and then being able to humanize that. Right? I do want to put some focus on that.
Yeah.
But I think that you've mentioned a few things that some of the listeners might have some questions about, right? When you're talking about differentiators of, well, you're not focused on property, you're focused on a parcel. You might not have a lot of specifics. You're not looking at Zillow and getting the Zillow breakdown. So I'd like to just kind of take a minute to talk about, what are the pros, and within pros, what are the similarities, I think the commonalities with land and maybe wholesaling, and then what are some of the differentiators that people should be aware of going in, because I think that'll give a good framework to us talking about engagement.
Yeah. Well, I think number one, house wholesalers, you guys are focused on one market, and probably maybe even like a part of one market, right? You're so hyper focused on like the north side of whatever. That's your market. Land investors, I mean, I have got some land investors that are in freaking Texas one day, they're over in Alabama the next day, they're in Florida the next day. So for them, it's a lot more difficult to truly send a personalized message, because the truth is a lot of times they don't really know that area very well. They see the numbers, they see their sales, and they see it's a good market. They talk to a broker maybe once, but there's not that hyper personalized relationship to the market. So as a house wholesaler, you want to lean on that. I mean, the goal, and like you just said, Michael, is to build trust. So if like the first thing we need to do is reverse engineer, how do I build trust over a single message? Okay, if this person knows that I actually know their market, I'm local. Like if you're local, like I mean, I sometimes it's a little scammy saying like I'm a local investor. No, it's like I've grown up in the area. My mom is from blank city. It might seem a little non-professional, but it's like I went to Edina High School. I know you probably get these messages all the time, but this is my backyard, and I would love you household sellers. You guys have such an advantage. You can just take them for coffee, take them to lunch. Like land investors don't get that opportunity. Most of what I'm investing in is in Florida. I'm in Minnesota, so I have to be even more hyper focused on in that message. Me giving them an understanding that I know the area, I know the local amenities, I understand what the major the highway systems are, and I understand the new projects that are coming in, and I'm really aware of the research, the market, and the trends, and all that. So I have to do all that research ahead of time. So that's one major thing. The house wholesalers use that to your advantage, because land investors most of the time.
Can we do a quick tangent here? How are
Yeah,
you doing
tangent.
that research? Right, because there are obvious tools that are like in the wholesaling space that people would use. What are the land equivalents? How are you building your market research?
AI, baby. AI. So
Yep.
I have a prompt. It is called the first thing I do. I have a prompt. So prompt is, for those of you who don't know, for AI is basically like a I'll just read it off to you. So when I'm talking to AI, whenever you're doing research or you're wanting real-time information with source, you're going to want to use a tool called perplexity.ai. Perplexity is like Google on steroids. When you ask it or when you prompt it something, it's going to search Google like 10 different ways, and it's going to bring you back all of the information in a really concise, nice way. So my research and new market prompt says you are an acquisitions manager for a land investment firm preparing to invest in area name. Your objective is to identify the most promising land investment opportunities in the area by thoroughly researching factors that drive land value and demand. Tell me about the area, build a detailed report, tell me how locals refer to it. Then I have all these things I need. Like I need a summary of the county plan, all the, what are they doing for land development? What's the hot land type? Who are the top 5 land brokers? So on and so forth. So if you put that in Perplexity, it's going to give you back a very detailed market report for that area with all the sources.
Yeah, it's really great for that kind of thing, because you can quickly kind of scan and determine what fits and what doesn't. And writing those prompts, you learn very quickly to include a couple statements of what to exclude. You run a couple of searches, it's going to come up with something wacky. It always does. And then you learn what it'll, I don't know, whatever. You're looking for properties in Venice, California, and it gives you a bunch of stuff about Venice, Italy, and you're like, all right, exclude Venice, Italy, right? And then narrow it down. And we'll get into this later. You have to be very careful when using it to create human speech, because it gets really wacky then, So, but it'll get you close. It'll get you close.
Well, in what way? In what would be the practical application of the human speech?
So if you said, for instance, like you're trying to get it to write messages for land investors, it said like, you gave an example of like, my mom went to high school in the area. I'm looking to buy land nearby, whatever, and it'll come up with, I can't do its goofiness off the top of my head, but it might say something like, "Gee whiz, I'd really love to buy land in the area. My mom grew up there, and it's just the best place in the whole wide world for me." And you're like, I know nobody speaks like that. That's weird.
So I will say I have gotten it to talk like me, but it took probably about 10 hours of building a custom. It's called a Claude project. So Claude.ai is actually, well, technically ChatGPT is the #1 LLM in the world as of last week. Claude is #2, and it is, honestly, if you're listening to this, it's September 2024. Do not use ChatGPT for content. It is terrible. Claude is way better, and there are other ones that are even way better. But you have to, like, I have a Claude project that talks like me, and I've had to train the blank out of it. Like, it will say something back, and I'm like, no, that's too aggressive. Like, you need to pretend like you're talking with a friend. Okay, reel it back. And then it gives me something I like. And I'm like, what did you do differently? And it's like, oh, well, I did these 3 things. I'm like, okay, add that to your custom instructions. So, and then it messes up. And then I'm like, what did you do? I don't like that. It's like, oh, I did this. So it's just this, it's a refinement game. I will say for the messages, obviously I've been doing AI for a long time, and I have prompt engineers, and I'm a prompt engineer. You need a copywriter, but one of the things you do need, if you are, especially if you're a land investor, I would say house wholesaler too, is you can use AI to personalize some of the inputs into the message. So if for land investors, for example, we often will say, we are looking for land that's within an hour of insert airport name. So then we will prompt AI to do a mass search and add a column in our seller spreadsheet of the closest airport to that lat long, that property, and then just fill the column in. So then we're bringing that into launch control. Pretty cool.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I often go to Callan when I want to know what's happening next in marketing. She always knows some website I don't know about, or some service that's the next gen thing. So yeah, definitely why you're my go-to here. All right. So what I'm hearing though a lot is, and like when I started with Launch, I was giving copywriting courses to investors basically, and per what you said, like you need ways to systemize things, you need ways to automate them, and I see a lot of correlation between like a basic copywriting course and a basic AI prompt structure setup. Because what you don't want to do, what kills time and is really difficult, is if you open Launch Control and you open another screen that's got Claude.ai open, and you're trying to construct messages, and you look at that message, that 5 message set that you need to construct, and you go, what could I ask, or what could I get AI to ask? And you're trying to think of like that airport example that you gave. Whereas the way to really speed this up is to do the thought exercise of what are the 10 elements that I could spin to my advantage of, road access, nearby airports, the example I gave of good school districts, and you put together that list of like, these are effective motivators.
How about
These
just
are
asking AI, what are 10 things like these
or
that I
or
could
ask
say
that,
in a
right?
message that would improve the trust with the person receiving the message? Here, and then
Totally.
again, AI loves context. It loves information. Unlike Google. Google is like short words, no context. AI is all context. So AI needs to know, I'm a house wholesaler. I invest in the Roanoke, Virginia market, typically east side. Here's the person I'm sending messages to. Here's how this person typically feels. They typically feel like I'm a scam. My ICP, my ideal client persona in my market, is 40-year-old Tom. He lives in a home that he hasn't really been taking care of. He's 2 months late on his mortgage. I'm sending him a message to help him get out of that situation right away. He probably doesn't trust me. Give me 10 really unique, hyper personalized things about that market or things I could say to Tom that would immediately invoke trust with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an important thing to note, because I feel like for some people there's a bit of a fear factor going into using AI, a feeling like they need to have a high level of tech prowess, as though
Oh,
there's going to be some
no.
coding involved or whatever. There's
No.
not. Like, it is an answer box, so like there are better ways to ask questions, and you learn very quickly what the better ways to ask questions are. But,
Yep.
for lack of a better term, start with word vomit. Just put it out there
Literally.
and see what comes back, and then course
Yeah.
correct from there. But you do not need to be a tech expert at all to use these tools.
No, in fact, it actually is a detriment, I think, for a lot of the guys that are tech experts. Because if you are
Mhm.
really, really techy, love you tech people, oftentimes verbal processing and the communication it sometimes isn't there because
Yeah.
it's you're freaking wizards. And so this is all communication. It's literally communication skills because you're just talking to, I mean, yes, you're talking to AI, but it is basically like talking to a human being. And that's why a lot of times in my coaching, I tell people before you log into ChatGPT, log into Claude, just take a second and just center yourself and say, if I could call any expert in the world right now, who would I call to have this conversation? Okay, I think I'd probably call a world-class real estate investing copywriter that specializes in cold marketing. Great. If I had that person, so that's what you need to tell AI it is. So then when you're talking, you're like, okay, what are all the things that person would need to know about me to generate a great response or have a great
Yeah.
conversation? Well, they would need to know who I am and what I do and what I invest in and who I'm talking to. And then that's how we get rolling. Just again, you word vomit on. They're like, so what do you do? And you're like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you. This is what I do. This is who I am.
Yeah.
It's not
When I
super
was
complicated. You really get into it.
No, when I was in college, one of my roommates was a computer programmer. And he calls me in one day, and he's like, look at this. And he had pulled up all of, like, in our group chats, like, his answers to questions versus my answers to questions. And like, that just in our, like, chats with friends. And it was hilarious because all of his answers were like 3 to 5 words, and all of my answers were like 3 to 5 sentences. It was
Yeah.
this huge
Yeah.
variation, right? And actually, AI wants to talk to me, not to him.
Mm,
It's not about the like being hyper precise. It's actually like over explain first, edit down a bit from there. But the more context it has, often the better it's going to do. You don't have to write 3 pages, but 3 to 5 sentences will get you a lot more than 3 to 5 words in that world.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's so good. Are you using AI on a regular basis for your day-to-day
Um,
workflow?
For my day to day, yeah, I do. I use it more for like the marketing side of things than I
Mhm.
do like as an integrated investment tool. But
Yeah.
I know that, and we do have AI generated content within the app. It does still require, be a full transparency. It does still require some editing. It's
Yep.
Chat GPT backed, so per your experience, it it's very hard to get it to sound
Yeah.
like me,
ChatGPT is not
and
there.
so
Mm-mm.
and I've
Yep.
and I've I've tried 1,000 different
Yeah.
variations of prompts. Like, it's
100%.
very
Yeah.
difficult to get it down there. So it does require some investor editing within our system. But I do think though that the real application of AI, like you can use it certainly to generate ideas for messages, and you may have to hone that. So it's the two places that I think that it's really powerful are, one is on the front end A/B testing. All right, so like you said, generate that list of things that build trust, and then create entire templates in Launch Control that are focused on that approach. So if you have like the school district approach versus the airport approach versus the driveway access approach versus the near water source approach, and you see how those each perform, then you can have measurable marketing metrics that you can look at. And it took you like not much time at all to set those up, because you're not being a copywriter, you're simply prompting the copywriting. Right? So it's powerful there. And then I think it's really powerful as well in the very early stage follow-up, right? Like to help push conversations towards the point of discovery call. Not to have a discovery call necessarily, but to push towards the point of discovery call. What do you agree, disagree?
I think those are two great ways. I have about 50 great ways of how I'm using it in my workflow. One of the things, yeah, of course, like generating some ideas of how to go to market, how to differentiate yourself, even building out like when we send purchase agreements, it's a proposal, it's not a contract. And in there is, great content that doesn't sound like ChatGPT, about us and about, our story. And there's pictures of me. Like we're human beings. We're really trying to bring human forward. A couple miscellaneous things that I think are important. Have you played with ChatGPT as a role-playing assistant at all in terms of the phone call?
No, I haven't. I don't know if our launch leads, which is our done for you service, I'm sure that they have, but personally, no.
Amazing. So anyone listening, if you have an acquisitions team or a sales team, the ChatGPT mobile app, there's a little, when you open the ChatGPT mobile app, there's a little headphone button, and I'm just going to do this live so you guys can hear this. Okay, so my name is Callan. I run a land investing company, and I need you to be Tom. He's an angry land owner that just answered a phone call from my team. We were just texting with him. He said that he wants an offer, but he doesn't want us to he doesn't want us to lowball him. And I want to role play the conversation. And I want you to, once I say let's call it, I want you to judge the conversation and tell me what I could have done better using Chris Voss negotiation principles from Never Split the Difference. Let me know when you're ready.
Got it. I'm ready whenever you are to role play as Tom, the angry landowner. You can start the conversation whenever you're ready, and I'll respond accordingly. Let's go.
All right, you go ahead and pretend like you're answering the phone.
Yeah. What do you want? I already told your team I don't want any lowball offers. If you're just here to waste my time, we're done.
Hey, Tom, I am sorry that we got off on the wrong foot here. So my name's Callan, and I totally understand that you are not looking for a lowball offer. Tell me, if you were going to even give me the time of day, what are some of the things that you would need from me? Because I love your property. We've been looking at it for the past couple of years, and finally getting a chance to connect with you means a lot. So I'd love to hear what you've been missing in these other offers.
Well, I've had enough of these so-called investors coming at me with ridiculous numbers. It's insulting, honestly. I know what my property's worth. I've had it for years, and I've seen offers come and go. If you're serious, I want to see something reasonable. I've got no time for games. What's in it for me that these other guys aren't offering?
I totally get it, Tom. And I can completely understand how frustrating that's probably felt to be, reached out and just kind of had your time wasted. And what I can assure you is that if this doesn't work out for me or for you, I would like for us to part ways. My goal is that we can find a win-win. My question for you is if you could just have a magic genie and dream up a scenario of how this relationship plays out, tell me exactly what you're looking for so that I can go back to my team, because I can try to pull some strings, but I'd love to know numbers wise what you're looking for, closing time, give me some details because I want to work with you on this.
All right. Well, if I had it my way, I'd be getting at least $75,000 for that land. It's prime property, and I know you guys like it if you've been eyeing it for years. I don't want any long, drawn-out process either. If we can close within 30 days, I'm good with that. And no hidden fees or nonsense. Just
All right, let's go ahead and call it. Let me know what I did well and what I need to work on. And I'm just going to end it here. And I'm going to say, let me know what I can work on. So this is amazing to do with your team, to prompt them, get them to get it on their phone, go back and forth. So he's saying what I did well was tone and empathy. I did mirroring without directly repeating his words. I acknowledged his frustration, offered a potential win-win. What I could improve on, he said that use no-oriented questions. So instead of asking for a positive commitment, try framing a question where he can actually give a no. So I should have said, would it be ridiculous to say you're looking for a fair price and a quick close? And he would say no. So every time I do this example, it gives me like 6 things I need to do better. And I'm like, I understand. But yeah, even me, I've done this a million times. And I'm like, oh, this is freaking awesome. So
No, I immediately thought of that as being the implications for training up a team, obvious, right? But I immediately saw that as being that early stage investor, early stage entrepreneur that doesn't have a big budget yet. That's super important. Like I work with people a lot on building out free to almost free sales and marketing systems, right? Because they don't have a $20,000 a month budget. They don't have they're not adding TV at any time soon, right? And there are free CRM resources you can use. You can even use Google Sheets in the beginning if you need to, right? And coaching is never going to get replaced by AI. But if you can't afford coaching yet, and you can't really afford to run through 200 land seller conversations before you close a deal because you're really working out the kinks of the conversations and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, this is free, right? You're prompting a service essentially to help coach you up and call out some things that you may not have caught. Like your tone was off. So you being able to accelerate your business with less practice at bats, really, really beneficial.
And you guys, like, this is, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This morning, I sit on my front stoop most mornings and drink my coffee. I pull this thing up, and I'm like, you are a world-class therapist. I pay you $1,000 an hour. You help entrepreneurs get activated to their highest potential. Ask me one question that will extract an anxiety, frustration, so that we can work through it. I'm a land investor. I'm about to get on the call with a developer. They're a multifamily developer. Their name is Hill Point. Here's a bunch of information about them. I have a 13-acre multifamily property I want to sell to them. Give me, let's role play the conversation. You be the land acquisitions manager at Hill Point, asking me tough questions about my property, and I will respond back. I'm about to call a broker in this new market. Whatever. I'm about to talk to my wife. She's pissed at me about XYZ. Like, it's not even, obviously there's coaches, these high level coaches. I have coaches that are $500 an hour for real. I have a coach I pay $5,000 a day to. I'm not getting rid of him, but in the heat of a moment, I'm about to go do something and I need to just get some clarity on how that conversation is going to flow. This has completely changed my life.
So you're obviously a very advanced user of AI, right? So
yes.
And people are going to have to work up to that, obviously.
Absolutely.
So we've kind of talked about it out of sequence a little bit in terms of how AI gets integrated into the day-to-day of land investing. And as you alluded to as a differentiator, you're often not investing in land in your own backyard, right? So you don't have necessarily that market understanding or know-how or whatever. So in terms of how and when to implement AI, what's your kind of setup structure? If somebody said, like, I want to get involved in buying land in South Florida, know nothing about it. So what's your kind of sequential setup for integrating AI into the process?
Into the land, like, education process
Land,
of just getting a business up
land
to running.
specifically. Like,
Yeah.
I'm coming in cold. I know nothing. I just tell you a county, and you go first. You need to know what's up with that county. So you're going to use AI to do like that kind of linear approach.
Yep. So first thing you're going to do is exactly that. You're going to do that market research. You're going to understand that county. I want to pull down all the for sales comps, all the sold comps. I want to load that into ChatGPT. I want to understand sell-through rates. I want to understand sell-through rates by acreage increment. It can run all that data for you. Sell-through rates are obviously how fast things are selling. So I want to understand what land is selling the fastest. Then I want to pull down all of the land brokers that have sold the most land in that area, feed that into ChatGPT, ask for the top brokers and why. I will enrich it with their email and phone. I'll call the top 4 or 5 to have conversations about the area. Again, I'm getting into a new market, so I have to quickly get myself up to speed on that area. If I'm brand new to land, I don't even know what to say. I'll say to ChatGPT, I am entering Hernando County, Florida as a land investor. I have no idea about this market. I'm not even sure about land investing. I feel really lost and a little confused and a little bit anxious. I'm about to get on the phone with a real estate agent to learn more about the market so that I know what kind of land I should market to. Give me 10 questions to ask him or her that will make me seem like a credible person, but B, extract as much information as possible. Every single conversation that you have with an expert in that market needs to be recorded. You can do it on voice memos on your phone. You can record it on a Loom video. I don't care. You need to capture that transcript. Every single expert, the surveyor, the soil scientist, the planning and zoning person, the building department, the realtor. Human brains typically capture about 10 to 15% of what they're hearing audibly, like this podcast. You're not going to remember every single thing we said. Same happens when you're talking to these experts. So record those conversations, grab those transcripts. You're going to start loading those transcripts into some sort of Google Doc. So you have this master notes. You're going to put all that in ChatGPT and say, summarize everything about this market that I should know before I start investing. Now we're going to figure out what kind of property we're investing in. At that point, you should have a pretty decent idea of what kind of land you want to start buying. You'll pull that list. You're going to feed that list into clay.com. Clay.com is an AI enrichment tool where we can now append the list with all these cool things like the closest airport and how far it is. And we can get really creative about having creative marketing content. Obviously using AI to help with that, the messaging sequence and how the cadence and what we should say and how we should say it. Then I would say everyone listening to this call needs some sort of, you're going to hear me say Claude project. Claude, like literally the man's name. Just Google it. Google Claude project. You need a Claude project where you're building, it's a sales assistant. You need a sales assistant. So when you're texting back and forth and you're like, what should I say when he says this? You need a place to go where you can just, even if you're just asking ChatGPT, ideally in your Claude project, you have loaded in all those transcripts of every call with every expert. You've loaded in all your data, you've loaded in all your messaging, and you've loaded in all the information about your business. And then you can even ask it, like, what are 10 questions you would ask me if you're going to be a sales assistant for my business? What more information do you need? Extract to get more information in there. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, just bear with me. You're basically loading in information into this Claude project so that every time you come and talk to it, it already has this knowledge base on the back end. Because if you just go into ChatGPT right now and say, what should I say back to this seller? It's like, is it a Craigslist seller? Is it what kind of seller is it? Versus if you're operating in a custom AI project that you've trained, it already knows. So that's sales. And then obviously I have prompts that act as a world-class attorney to give me some advice on, seller financing and sub 2 and like what kind of offer structure I should build out. I have my investor packet generation prompt. So I can it's a world-class financial analyst specializing in creating investor packets for real estate projects. So if I need to go get money from an investor, I use AI to build that whole packet of presentation to the capital partner. I could keep this could be hours, but you kind of see from start to finish, there's just so many different ways where, I mean, someone coming into the business right now has such an advantage to collect information.
And it sounds like a lot, right? But there's two important factors. One is that it's a Lego set. You don't need every single piece immediately. You can kind of build and build and build and attach these different AI elements and kind of build up your full system. And then, once you really do have it dialed in, the amount of time that it saves and the amount of automation that it adds, factor in, this is an important thing that the financial gurus will teach you in the REI space is, how much are you worth? How much is your time worth? Right? And if your time is worth $100 an hour, right, then if and this automation system saved you on average 15 hours a week. Well, the knock-on effect of that is pretty obvious, right? Like you're $5-6 grand a month worth of savings just in AI automation.
Well, I mean, I have a 6 clients that have like Filipino VA teams. Think about this: ChatGPT or Claude, whatever, they can speak their native language in there. They can say like, "Hey, I really want to improve the way we do this." Oftentimes, it is hard. If you told me like I gotta not only be creative, but I gotta be creative in Spanish, I'm like, okay, I'm out. Like, okay, you are now at minimum 2xing their potential. Like, you're activating
Yeah,
them to a higher potential because you're now allowing them to think clearly in their native language and then translate it to English in the same conversation. I mean,
yeah.
it's really cool.
So, for people listening, I want to make sure everybody understands this, is that you're not just a subject matter expert here. You also coach people. You have training programs to teach
Yeah.
people how to do all of this. So if
Yes.
you're furiously listening or you're listening and furiously writing things down,
Yeah.
great, good. You can definitely re-listen to the episode and figure this out. But if you want the easy button of working with Callan, she does coach and train people on all of these aspects. So you want to touch on that just for a second, so people have the follow-up info, and we'll of course
Absolutely.
put it into the show notes, obviously.
Yes, I'm like just even going back to how fast I was just talking. So I apologize for that. You're gonna have to put that on like 0.25 speed about the flow. So I have 2 programs. One is a program I've had for the last 2 years. We've put some enhancements on it the last 6 months where it's acquisitions training for land investors. So really focusing on, getting launch control, spinning it up, sending some random messages, easy. Actually getting it to produce consistent results, training your team on a system. We all know the statuses, we all know the tags, we all know when things go into CRM and when they don't. That is what I'm really passionate about. I think I find so many people get in there and they're just like, okay, go send messages. I'm like, you have 100 leads that came in the last month that you haven't followed up with. You should be stopping all new message sending. The acquisitions training is really honing in on your team, training your team, and then also role playing calls, listening to calls. What are we saying? Cool, you generated a lead. Now what? Now the hard part begins of what do you say? Where in your system should it go? So that's my acquisitions training program. That's a 3-month program. We do cohort style. So we launch usually about twice a year. So if you're listening to this, you can go to reioptimize.com. You can go to our, what do we change it to? It's our training and courses button, and our acquisitions training course. It's called the texting course for real estate investors is there. And you can join the wait list to make sure that you are on that. The second program is our program I'm so excited about, which is called Automate to Accelerate. So that is our AI training program. We, if you go to our website, if you go to training and courses, you'll see the AI masterclass. Watch that first. I talk about the course in there, but I really drive everyone to watch the masterclass first. We launch that program also a couple times a year. We're doing a fall launch. I don't know when this is going to come out, but we launched that program October 23rd of 2024. And then we're going to launch again January, February of 2025. And that is 8 weeks of AI training. And I want your entire team in there.
Did you say 8 weeks?
8 weeks of live training
Wow.
with me. Yeah. So we meet every week for about 75 minutes, plus there's homework. And then we do an office hours every other week where you come and you're like, I cannot figure this out. I want to build this prompt. I don't know where to start. We have 4 AI coaches in there, very hands-on. And it has been one of the best experiences of my life teaching this stuff to people. So it's been really fun.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah. But launch control, ultimately it's software as a service, right? We're a platform for sending text messages. And within sort of software nomenclature, you want to have a certain level of app adoption, which just means like, how well do people know the app? Are they using all of the bells and whistles? Are they optimizing it? Right. And most people, no fault of their own, there's a lot that you can do with launch control, aren't fully optimized. And you've always been, one of the handful of our partners that we work with that really optimizes the app and uses it to its full potential. So kind of pushing the envelope even, right? So for people listening, you want to, if you're inland and launch control has been really effective for you, Callan's system crushes. It's really set to optimize launch control at its best, and it works. Gets results.
Thanks, Michael. It's been super fun. I think I've seen into, at this point, probably 200 different real estate investors' launch control environments. And I tell people all the time, like, I never thought, I'm sure you feel the same. I never thought I would know so much about texting, cold texting for lead gen, and not just real estate investors. Like, I don't know who listens to this, but I've done this for chiropractors. I've done this for my friend who opened a sauna cold business, and we use texting to text the neighbors, and they got tons of leads. So really excited about where you guys are headed to, and just all the things that,
one of the things that I think you've always done really well with working with your students, or one of the things that you understood really early on, coming in, I probably thought the same thing that everyone else did, is that you send a singular text message, right? Where really text engagement is about a conversation. It's about getting people engaged via text, sending the appropriate number of text messages to drive them to a phone call. It's about starting and supporting relationships, really. And you don't necessarily get that coming in, and you have to learn that, right? You have to learn the multi-touch point effectiveness of text over time. And you really adopted to that early on, and saw the effectiveness of really thinking of the through line of text and how it can help along the entire customer journey, and from point of contact to close. And that's where the money comes from, right? Like we often say as like a catchphrase, the money is in the follow-up. But what that means, obviously, is having entire engagement structures with sellers. Some of it's on phone, some of it's text, some of it's email, but having that collection of touch points add up to an effective relationship that, got you a deal, but also got them an outcome or a solution.
Yeah. And like you said, it's launch control is incredible at, getting that response back in. And I like to say, like, now the work begins. Like,
right.
What's the response? Because people spend so much time. If they just raise their hand, I'm like, bro, that's easy. You want to get people to say they're interested in selling their property and they'll get an offer from you? Thousands, probably 1 million hand raises at this point that I've seen.
Right.
But the good people spend time on.
Yeah, and it's like it's as much as it's a one-on-one conversation, as much as it's about individual outreach. To automate it, to have systems, it needs to follow marketing protocols, right? Like you don't send one email and go, well, that didn't work, right? Like email is a sequence of emails, and that sequence of emails builds towards a point, right? Like you have a different approach in each email. It builds towards getting a result. You're oftentimes with direct mail, you might try an introductory piece, then you might try actually a firm offer to see what hits. you're always A/B testing, iterating, trying different things, and text needs to follow the same line of thought, right? So what you were saying early on of getting your loyalty prompt structures from AI and then iterating and testing that, hugely important, right? Iterating and testing on the early stage follow-up, because it really should be foundational marketing for your business. And any foundational marketing, you need to have a A/B test structure so you know what's working and you know where to kind of hone in and focus. And that's going to change market to market, right? Like what works in South Florida might be very different to what works in North Dakota or Wyoming or Wisconsin or wherever else you're investing in land.
Yeah. Yeah. All true. It's there is so much I think we forget, especially in the land investing space. I think wholesaling, I think they consider the front end sales, like sales training, but I think we forget that this is sales. Like we're asking them if but you're selling a service, and any company, I think house wholesalers get it. Like they operate pretty intensely around sales, but land investors, if y'all are listening, I don't know why. It's just forgotten, and we need to treat it with a little bit more system structure than we are now.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like land is it's a couple years behind wholesaling, but I see that as a big positive, right? Because if there isn't this infrastructure in place, or kind of an infrastructure with clear breaking points in place, we can just build it out and have a really efficient and effective system in place for land acquisitions, but one that takes into account the recipient experience. Amazing, right? Like it's a fun moment in land.
Yes. No, we're getting there. It's slowly but surely. I think they're understanding, even just treating it like a real business. I think, and that's the same for real estate investors too. You know, they started as a side hustle and they forget the structure and they forget the systems, and they're like, well, we'll figure out tags later. And like, I don't know, everyone just kind of create their own status plan and like, we'll come back to it. And then I get into a launch control environment and there's 1,000 leads in there. I'm like, I'm sorry, what is happening? What is this? One of my hot tips for launch control, I think we've talked about this before. When you're reviewing your leads, go to the last page first. Don't start at the top. Like, you need to go to your last page. Okay, March 2023. What is happening with this person? It's so funny. People are like, well, they said their brother owns it, not him. I'm like, okay, so let's ask for the brother's number. Oh, okay, great. It's like the people just mark it as, I don't know, like question mark, and move on. I'm like, what is happening? It's because there's no system. There's no structure. There's no training. There's no plan. It just becomes chaos. So again, planning the scale.
I mean, we could go on that topic forever. Like the amount of money that gets wasted on data because of potential leads that are just, the fruit didn't fall fast enough, so that the leads get kind of left in the system. It's wild. That's a whole training course in itself.
Yes. Another day, another time.
Another time. All right. Well, Callan, it's always great speaking to you. I always have to open like 8 tabs to check out the new systems or new programs that I need to look into. So for everyone listening, again, in the show notes, we'll put follow up to Callan and her team if you want to work directly with her. But yeah, always great to have you on. Thank you. I really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Michael. Thanks, crew. Yeah, if you want to learn more, REIoptimize.com, and or shoot us an email, hello@REI Optimize, and see if we can help you do more deals, make more money.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Talk soon.